All right. Can you see my presentation? All
Yes.
right, everybody. All right. Well, welcome, everybody. We're really glad that you have joined us. We will get started in a couple minutes. We'll let people log in, and then we will take some time to present over the basics of radon. And so we have about 20 to 30-minute presentation, but really a good part of this time will give you a chance to ask questions. And so that's really the bonus of having these community information sessions, is that we want to connect with you and we want to be able to answer your questions. So thanks so much for joining us tonight.
And
I will, yeah, go ahead, Anne-Marie.
I just wanted to say that I'm calling in from British Columbia, where it's still actually very sunny. And I'm assuming it's dark there in Newfoundland. Am I right? Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, the sun is in my face. So if you see me trying to do this, that's because strangely we have a sunny day in British Columbia. It's not often.
Good. All right. Well, I will start with introductions. So I'm really pleased tonight to have Dr. Anne-Marie Nicol coming from Vancouver area. She is our epidemiologist, and she's going to talk through the basics of health side of things and answer all your health related questions. So she's a really great resource. She's part of our Take Action on Radon team. And so we're really thankful that she can join tonight. And we also have Shelley Fillier from Gillams. And so thanks so much, Shelley, for joining us tonight. She is our community liaison. So she's been helping us get this organized and connect with all of you. Shelley, thanks so much for joining us tonight. And we also are really grateful to have Steve join us. So Steve Thorne is a CNRPP mitigation professional, and he is in the province of Newfoundland. So we're really thankful that we do have a certified professional, a really great resource for all of you. So he's going to join us and answer questions about radon mitigation. And so you'll see as we go through the information session tonight, we'll present a little bit on each topic, but we hope that just seeds some of your thoughts and that you've got lots of questions for Steve. So he's a really great resource and can answer your questions about mitigation. So thanks, Steve, for joining us. All right, and we are going to get started. So Anne-Marie, I will hand it off to you.
Sure. And I just wanted to encourage people to put your questions in the chat, and there's also a formal Q&A, and I know some people might be on the phone. So as a result, if questions come in, we will read them out to make sure that people at home can see and hear what was asked. So today we're going to go over a bit about what radon is and its impacts on health. And then if you have elevated levels in your home, how to go fixing it. And it's great that Steve is here. I'm the nerd and I don't know that much about fixing homes. Usually I have to hand it over to Pam. So it's great to have some support on the actual like nuts and bolts of reducing radon levels. And then, yeah, it's great that you've all decided to be part of the 100 Test Kit Challenge and access free Radon Test Kits. So thanks for the community organizer for getting everyone here. And we are a national program, so we're really proud to unite members from across Canada, and many of which encompass the traditional territories of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, whose ancestral footsteps and rights extend beyond the colonial boundaries that exist today. And we respectfully honor these people's rights, histories, and relationship to the land. And today I'm calling in from the unceded Coast Salish territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples here in East Vancouver. So if you've come to this information session and you've never heard about radon before, then you are in the right place. Every 2 years, Statistics Canada does a household and environment survey that comes along with a census, and it asks people questions. Some people get asked extra questions. There's that extra part that sometimes you get on the census. And they ask people what radon gas is and what it does. And what we know is that over time, the number of people who are aware of radon has increased. But the reality is that less than 50% of Canadians can accurately answer questions about radon. So if nothing else from this evening, you're going to leave here being able to ace the census question if you ever have to do it. But radon is the leading cause of lung cancer. in non-smokers and the second cause of lung cancer if people are smokers. So removing radon from your environment is a really important step that you can take to protect your lung health. Next, please, Pam. So radon is what's known as a designated known human carcinogen. And there's a number of agencies all over the world that are tasked with understanding whether or not things cause cancer. And in Canada, cancer is the leading cause of death now. It far outpaces cardiovascular disease. And unfortunately, 1 in 4 Canadians will develop lung cancer in their lifetime. So that's a lot. So anything we can do to reduce the risk is important. And lung cancer is the cancer that we're still really don't have much in terms of treatment. The survival rate is low. It's about 22% after 5 years. So it's a serious cancer. I'm sure everyone on this call knows at least one person who's developed it in their lifetime. So beyond tobacco, radon is the next most significant and pervasive exposure that we want to deal with. And just to talk a bit about the evidence base, like there's a lot of different things that people throw around that can cause cancer, right? There's coffee, is it obesity, red wine? I don't know. But the thing with those is the evidence base for those is nowhere near as clear as the evidence base for radon. That's why it's considered a known human carcinogen. There's been extensive research that's been done on humans, some of the miners from Newfoundland, and their unfortunate demise has led to a very solid body of evidence that exposure to radon over time, it's not immediately dangerous to life and health, but over time, exposure to radon leads to the development of lung cancer. And Health Canada does different calculations depending on population levels of smoking rates. And on average, they estimate that over 3,000, the most recent estimate is 3,300 Canadians die each year, so about 9 people a day from radon-related lung cancer. Next, please. One thing we've really learned is that co-exposures of tobacco and radon are really bad for lung health. So if you don't smoke and you're exposed to high levels of radon, then your risk of developing cancer is about 1 in 20. Now that's significant, but if you smoke, it's much higher. It's about 1 in 3. And this is, of course, we've got there, thanks. That's dependent on how high the radon levels are. But you can see that there's a relationship that we call this submultiplicative relationship, or essentially it's a synergistic relationship. There's sort of a 1-2 punch that comes from whether people have damage in their lungs from tobacco and then damage from the radiation from radon gas. And this is important not only for current smokers, but for ever smokers, because that damage has already been done to the DNA in the lungs. And then there's emerging evidence about people who live with environmental or secondhand tobacco smoke indoors. So no matter how you inhale it, the relationship between tobacco and radon is really bad news. Next, please, Pam. And just to show you that Health Canada is not exaggerating these statistics, the WHO has a slightly doomier projection, which says if you do smoke and you're exposed to elevated radon, your risk of developing lung cancer goes up by about 25 times. So it is serious. And here at Take Action, we are working with the Canadian Cancer Society and their smoking cessation program to really push this message out that reducing both of these exposures is really the key to better lung health. Next, please. So where could you be exposed to radon gas and how does that happen? So radon is a soil gas and it's radioactive because it's part of the decay chain of uranium. And uranium, I'm sure you're no strangers to the concept of uranium. It exists in soils and rocks all across Canada. We are considered a uranium-rich country. And as that radon, as uranium decays, it's a metal and it's a metal and it's a metal. It goes into all these different things, radium, and then it becomes a gas. And the problem with that is then it moves. It doesn't stay in the Earth's crust where it was supposed to stay. It moves, and it moves from colder, denser areas in the soil up. That's what gases do. They like to move and diffuse. And unfortunately, they can diffuse into homes. Now, it's true they diffuse outside through cracks in the ground and soils, pores in the soils, and that usually is dissipated fairly easily by outdoor air. But it's when the radon is entrained in a home or it enters through cracks and gaps around floors and ceilings, fittings and pipes, sump pumps, that the levels can increase over time. And it's invisible. It's colorless, odorless, and tasteless. So you can't tell if you have radon in your home. And we do know that levels tend to be higher on ground contact rooms or basement rooms. So things that are connected to or on the ground or in the basement, those rooms tend to have higher levels than levels in the second and third floor of a home. Although research has found there's elevated levels sometimes in those areas, but usually it would mean that there's even higher levels on the floors below. Next, please. So we've been testing communities across the country for 5 years now. And what we've seen is there's big differences sometimes in the rates of homes that test above 200 becquerels per meters cubed. That's the federal guideline of when people would want to deal with radon in their home. So there's big differences in the rates of high radon in different communities. We have some communities in British Columbia where we've seen 60% of homes above that guideline. And then we have others where we've seen 2%. So you really can't guess what the radon levels are going to be. But what has been consistent is that of all the testing we've done, we've often found at least one home that is above that. So 95% of all health regions in Canada have homes with high radon. And there's really no area of the country that's radon free. And where I live here in Vancouver, they used to say that there was no radon here. But with concerted testing programs that I've done through my university and through this program, we found that sure, there's places that there's not many homes, but there are always a few. And unfortunately, the only way that you're going to know if your home tests high is if you're going to is to test. And there's a few different kinds of ways of testing, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, you can't actually predict it. Next, please. So where is radon a concern? Well, it's a concern in indoor environments. So that includes homes, but also schools. And in British Columbia, we have only just started testing our schools for radon, and only in the interior where there's now very clearly a radon problem. Other provinces like Saskatchewan and Manitoba have been testing the schools and have done so for a long time. I can't comment on Newfoundland. I'm sorry, I don't know. But we're also in British Columbia testing daycares because those are places that some children spend a significant amount of time in. So any building that has contact with the ground has the potential to have radon levels. Places like workplaces ought to be tested through workplace health and safety programs, but often the kind of patterns that happen in workplaces with doors opening and closing and better ventilation, the exposure is lower. So Health Canada suggests that it's actually your exposure at home that's the thing that's really important. And because we know more and more people are spending more time at home, then that's the area that we really want to focus on. But Health Canada, just so that you know, it recommends that all buildings be tested for radon, and they actually have guides that can help people test workplaces as well as schools, public libraries, and other places. Next, please. So how do you test for radon? Well, it's relatively easy to both test and reduce radon. So I think at this point in time, I'm going to hand it over to Pam. And I think we've been joined by our Health Canada rep too. Rebeb has joined us on the line. Hello, Rebeb.
Hi, Anne-Marie. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I am still in sunny British Columbia, so I'm thank you for joining us today. Rebeb is your Health Canada representative on the radon portfolio.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to assist.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rebeb. So for all of you, we'll just remind you, you can put in those questions as we go through the presentation, and Rebeb is here to answer from Health Canada as well. So it'll be great to have a good team. All right, so thanks so much, Anne-Marie, for walking us through the background and the health implications. I'm going to start and go through the testing process and lead us into the details of how you are going to get your test kit. So in Canada, we test for radon. We call it a long-term test. So the recommendation is to test for a minimum of 91 days. With the 100 test kit program, we talk about 100 days just to make it easy. And so the reason we test for 91 days is because levels of radon can fluctuate. It is a gas, and so it moves into your home because of the changes of air pressure. Gas likes to move into low pressure areas from high pressure. So when the ground is cold, especially, it is under a high pressure and it moves in through those cracks and entry points into your home. And so different things that you do within your home could change that different pressure. So something like using your kitchen vent fan may draw air out of your home, change the pressures, and therefore draw more air in from the soil. Using your dryer could do a similar thing. Or sometimes the weather outside can change the pressures as well. If suddenly there's a change of pressure systems or change of winds speeds, they can change the levels. But we don't always know how much. And so when you test for long term, that will even out the averages. And really what we want to know is what your average exposure is. If you were to just do a couple-day test, you may just happen to catch a low time, and that might give you a false sense of a low level. So really, we want you to test for the long term. And so in the 100 Test Kit program, the free tests that we're giving out are called alpha track detectors. And these are long-term detectors. They're one use. They will come in a little clear package, and all you need to do is cut open the package. Yeah, Steve will show you one there, and then put it in place. And so it's not a very large detector. It's a little bit smaller than my palm. It's a little square detector. And so you can hang it. There is a little notch on the top, and you can hang it. But it also will come instructions on where to place it. So I'll talk about that in a minute. And the other thing is they are accurate. So we do quality control measures with them to make sure that they're measuring consistently and accurately. And so when you do get the report, you can have confidence that the report is accurate. And so speaking of your report, when you do get it, it will have a number on it, and that will give you an average of what the radon level was while the detector was in your home. And Health Canada has recommendations of actions to do. So if the levels are above 200, their recommendation is that you can fix within 2 years. If it's above 600, they recommend fixing within 1 year. And so really this gives you a little bit of guidance, but really we want you to fix sooner. So sooner is better. And certainly when you do fix it, lower is better. So you want to get it to not just below 200, but really as low as possible. And the good news is we do have a certified program, certified professionals across the country, and we have a national certification program that provides training. And so we do have a certified professional in Newfoundland. And so you can go on to the CNRPP website to find Steve's contact information, or you can reach out to us and we'll connect you with him. Now, if the levels are high, the radon mitigation system is the most effective way of reducing levels. And this includes a pipe and a fan. The pipe goes down to the ground through the concrete foundation of your floor, or if you have a wood floor or crawl space, those sorts of things, it'll go down into the subslab space. So the pipe goes down below your home, and then it extends up and out. So it can go out the side of the house, or it could go up through the roof. And this provides a pathway for the gas. So ideally what we want is the soil gas to go in through this piping system and out and not even enter your home. And so this system can be installed in such a way that it's really simple to install and to maintain. The pipe has a fan on it. And so really the only maintenance would be to replace the fan if that burns out. And it's really simple, but it does mean that it has to be installed properly. And so when a certified professional goes to install this in a home, they will make sure that the location chosen is effective. They may do some sealing of the foundation. So ideally what they want to do is remove the gas from the entire footprint of the home. And so they want to get good communication across the soil to make sure that it's coming out and up. And they may do some sealing. They will properly size the fan because they want to make sure that the fan is installed in such a way that it's just large enough for your home to provide just enough air movement so that the air goes from the soil up and out without going into the home. And so it's a really simple system, but like I said, it needs to be installed properly. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in detail with Steve. But here's a couple pictures of what it looks like in place. And so it can be installed off in the maintenance room or out of the way space. And the other good news is there is a national grant program available. So the Canadian Lung Association has a grant that is available that you can apply for. In order to apply for the grant, you need a long-term test, which by testing with this program, you will have that report at the end of the testing process. You also need to provide a quote from a CNRPP certified professional. And so that you need to apply before you get the mitigation work done. And then you need to qualify for the grant. And so the grant is for anyone who has been diagnosed with lung cancer or people who are low to moderate income. So you do need to provide some supports to show that you do qualify for the program. So that is available, and it provides $1,500 towards the cost of mitigation. All right, so that's a little bit about fixing it. We do want you to let you know that there are some, the National Building Code has measures in place. So across the country, the building code applies to various provinces, and in Newfoundland, it applies to various municipalities. So not all areas of Newfoundland are on the National Building Code, but if your home happened to be built in accordance with the building code, these are the things that it would be include. There's a gravel layer that's under the slab, and then a well-sealed liner, and really every openings such as sump pits or any openings to the ground really should be sealed. And then there's a rough-in for the future use, and that rough-in is just a 12-inch pipe that sticks up out of the ground. It's capped and sealed, and it doesn't solve the radon problem, but what it does do is it provides the start to that piping system that I showed you earlier. And so if your home happened to be built and it has this pipe in the basement, then that's what it's there for. It should be properly labeled with the words radon on it, ideally with a proper sticker to explain exactly what it's for. So there are some homes that are built according to that code. And really the gravel under the slab helps with that communication. So I mentioned that we really want to reduce the levels to as low as possible. And so to draw the air out from the full footprint of the home. All right, so I'll go into now the kind of the overview and then details of the 100 Test Kit Challenge program so that you can know the details you need to pick up your kit. So as part of the program, the first step is to pick up your detector. And so we come into communities such as Gillams because we want to encourage you to test as a community. Sometimes people are a little fearful that nobody else knows what this is and that we're going to be the first one. But by participating as a community like this, you know that you're not alone. So there's others that are also testing their home. And so we will, you have a location that you can go and pick it up, and I'll give you the address in a minute. And so over the next week or so, you can go pick up that kit. And then you'll put it in place. We'd really encourage you, take it home and set it up right away. There is instructions, so it'll be an envelope, and inside is the instructions and the little detector. And then we need to know the information from you, such as when you started the detector, your name, and your detector serial number. And so we've got a form online that you can go to that is all in the instructions. There's either a QR code or there's a web link that you can type in and go to, but we need that information from you. And after 100 days, we need you to drop off the kit. So again, the same location you picked it up, you're going to drop it off. And then we want you to also record your end date at the end of the process. So I'll walk through those kind of in detail. All right, so after you go pick up the kit, you're going to put it in place. And so I want you to picture your home and think about the basement or the ground contact level in your home. Think about a room that you may spend 4 hours a day or more in, like a bedroom, a home office, maybe a family room. And so if you have a basement, but you don't actually use that for 4 hours a day or more, then you wouldn't test in your basement. You would think about the next floor up, your main floor. And so again, think about a bedroom, a home office, or a living room. Once you've chosen the room that you're going to put the detector in, then you're going to pick a location for it. And the instructions on the instruction sheet are based on Health Canada's instructions, and Health Canada, very science-minded, have very strict location distances and all this as part of the instructions. So we have given you Health Canada's instructions. However, I do get a lot of phone calls from people standing in their room trying to figure out where is at a location to put this kit. And so really what I want you to do is think simply. Just put it in a location, keep it away from a window, and keep it up off the floor. And so those are the two key things to think about. You can put it on a table, or on a shelf. We recommend your breathing zone height. So if it's a bedroom or a living room, you know, where you're sitting or lying down, think about that space where you're breathing the air and put it in a shelf about that height. If you've got pets or kids and you're worried that they're going to play with it if you put it at that height, then put it up higher. No worries. We have done research to show that actually you can put these all over your room and they're going to be fairly evenly reported. And so you really don't need to worry too much about it. But we do give you the best practice instructions. But really, when it comes to it, just think of it away from the window and up off the floor. If for some reason at the end of the project you go to find your kit after the 3 months and you realize it's fallen on the floor, or maybe your spouse in their cleaning efforts rearranged it, that's great, but have no worries. Even though it got moved, it will still be fairly accurate. So we've tested all those different scenarios. So even if it falls on the floor, we've done tests to show that it's pretty accurate. We still don't recommend putting it on the floor. So make sure you put it up just for best practice. But that's always the most complicated step. Take it home and put it in place where you spend 4 hours a day or more. So here's some ideas of good locations for them that you can put them in: a filing cabinet, a shelf, a table. And so yours will be a little square black plastic one. So just take it out of the clear plastic and set it up on the table. Okay, and then after you do that, yeah, you'll go to this website, click the Start Survey button, and record your time, your date, and your name and your serial numbers. We have some required information, so you'll notice on the form that there's required fields that you need. We also need your address and your email, and then there is optional information. So we are doing a housing survey for part of our research. So if you want to participate in that, you are welcome to. But if you just want to give us the basic information and that's it, no problem. That's all you need to do. And then you leave it in place for 100 days. Oh yeah, some of you, I mentioned at the start that these detectors are accurate. And the reason we know that is because we do quality assurance. And one of the measures we do is we give about 10% of the packages will have 2 detectors. And so if you open your envelope and you got 2 detectors, it's not a bonus detector, it's not a give a friend detector, it's actually part of our quality control. So we ask that you open them up at the same time and you put them side by side. So think about them as fraternal twins. They want to like be right close together. So you can put them right beside each other and leave them. So open them up at the same time and then return them at the same time. And they're on the form that you fill out, you will have a space for 2 serial numbers. All right, and then at the end of the 3 months, on the envelope, it will give you the dates and the location of your drop-off times and dates, and so you can check that out. Then we will ship those detectors to the lab, and the lab will analyze the detectors. And after about 8 weeks, you will get an email with the report. And so we'll usually let Shelley know, hey, the reports are getting out, or if you've heard from your neighbor that they've got their report, you can go check your email. These do often go to spam folders. So we do recommend that you check your spam folder. You can do a search on Radon Nova, that's the name of the company, or just Radon, and it might pop up for you. But we really want to make sure you get this report. So if you don't get it, let us know. You can reach out. Our contact information is on the envelope, the instructions. So reach out to us to make sure you get your report. After we've got most of the reports, then what we do is we create a community survey. So that individual report is only for you. We don't share that information with anyone else. We keep that is your home and your radon level and your address only goes to you. But what we do is we take the survey results and we roll it up into a community report. And so we will share the data as a summary. And so this is the public-facing community report that we'll share at the end. And so usually it'll be about May, June, after we've started a project. So this is one from Peachland, BC that we did a couple of years ago. And so you can see the front page of the report has community-specific information. So a little picture from the community, the number of homes that we tested in that community, the percentage of homes that were above the 200 level. And then we have a little infographic. So the green homes are the homes that tested between 0 and 100, yellow are between 1 and 200, and then the red are above 200. And so we'll produce this report and share it with you after the testing program. Okay, so now for you, the detectors are at Gillams Town Hall, so you'll go in there and pick them up, and we've got the hours there, so they're open Monday to Thursday 9 to 5, and then Friday 9 to 2. So you can go in and pick up your detector starting tomorrow and up until Friday, November 24th. So make sure you go in and pick that up. Shelley, I'll get you. Do you have any instructions for people when they come in and pick up their detector? I'll just get you to unmute first, Shelley.
Sorry. Nope, I've got them here ready and waiting for them to pick up. And if they get any questions, I will do my best to answer them. If not, we will contact you for the answers.
Perfect. Good. So yeah, I see you've got one of the envelopes there. You want to hold up the package? Yeah, see, it looks like that. Nice. And then I saw you earlier, you had a detector in the package. Yeah, there we go. So that's what it looks like before you open it. Yeah, nice.
And
Good. All right, thanks.
If they can't catch me at regular office hours, I do know everybody in the community, so I can drop them off to them as well.
Nice. Okay, that's awesome. Thanks, Shelley. Good. And then in 3 months or 100 days, you'll be dropping them off at the beginning of March. And so Shelley will have a box. Really, it's super simple. You don't have to put your detector in anything. You can just take it, drop it in the box, and that's it. And then we'll provide Shelley with a shipping slip to make sure we get those off to the lab. It comes in an envelope, and on the envelope are the start and the end time, as well as a pre-printed serial number. And so we recommend that you keep that because that's your record. The serial number is on the detector. So after you drop off the detector, you no longer have the serial number. But if you keep the envelope, keep that until you get that report from us, and that will give us all the information. So if you've forgotten any steps, we'll call you and say, okay, what was your serial number? What was your start and end date? And so you can write that and record that till you get your report. All right, and that's it. So we will take some time for questions. I'll leave up our contact information so you can contact us by phone or email. But I will start with a couple questions. So Steve, I'm going to get you to answer a couple questions first off.
Let's see how I do.
Yeah, all right. So first question that we often get is about the cost of a mitigation system. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
For my clients, we've been in the 2,500 to 3,300 range. That depends on the complexity of the house, how the house is laid out, as well as travel time. But what we're doing for West Coast customers is that we're kind of waiting to get 2 or 3 or more homes together and then do a trip across the island and back. That way, that reduces the travel expenses very significantly. So that's what we've been doing there.
Nice. Yeah, that's perfect. So that's less than any major renovation really that you might do to your home. So that's great. And that's really within the national average. We have done research on the cost of mitigation across the country. And that's really, that's about what we're seeing in other locations as well.
These mitigations are very, very effective. So our worst mitigation, 90% reduction, but we're seeing kind of that 90 to 99% reduction radon levels. So it's not kind of tweaking the radon levels, it's destroying the radon levels.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about numbers. What kind of high numbers have you seen before mitigation?
On an average number, I've had clients in the 500, 600, certainly had clients with sustained peaks above 1,200. So at that point, you're talking about levels 6 times the allowable or the recommended limits, the action limits. There is one report of a home here in the St. John's area at about 3,000. So that home was taken care of before I became a mitigator. So I don't know that to be a fact, but I was told by a pretty reliable source.
Yeah.
Certainly on the West
And then,
Coast.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, certainly on the West Coast, it's a lot more prevalent. So the Stephenville area did the same program, and 34% of the homes failed the test, were above 200. So and then kind of the whole West Coast as a whole is about 10% above 200. Here in Avalon, we're closer to about 5%.
Great. And then what are the radon levels you're seeing after mitigation?
So I think industry standards to try to get it below 75, we target below 20.
Wow. Yeah, so that's really great, really effective systems. And yeah, and then we've talked a bit about the mitigation financial support. And so there is that available that you can also apply for with that. Good. I'm going to get Rabeb to join us. So Rabeb, I'll ask you a couple questions. One is about schools. So Anne-Marie mentioned schools in the province of Newfoundland, but you have some good news, I think, to share, right? Do you know what testing has been done in schools in Newfoundland?
Absolutely. So we got all the schools in Newfoundland to be tested for radon, and like the schools that tested high also have been mitigating their rooms that tested high. So for in regard of that, like the schools have been taken care of. But it's important to stress that we would spend almost 90% of our time in our homes. So making sure that, for example, the workplace, the school, the public buildings are safe is good, but it doesn't really prevent or reduce the risk of being affected from radon, because the most important space for us to secure is the house, is the home, and it's a responsibility that is given to the people to decide about that. Now,
Right.
yeah, yes, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Okay, yeah, I have another question. You put actually the answer to it in the chat about the stats. What kind of stats are we seeing of lung cancers in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Absolutely. So I just got the newest statistics from the Canadian Cancer Society, and for Newfoundland and Labrador, in 2022, unfortunately, 580 person has been diagnosed with lung cancer, and also unfortunately, 410 patients died of it. Not necessarily from those 508, but those are the statistics related to this year.
Yeah, annually.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
good. Yeah, thanks for that. And that's really one of the reasons why we're here is prevention. Lung cancer is one of the preventable cancers. We know that smoking is definitely the #1 cause, but radon is really catching people by surprise. We're seeing more and more non-smokers being affected by lung cancer. And really, it is unfortunately one of the highest, or it is the #1 terminal cancer. And so prevention really is important.
Absolutely. I mean, people tend to forget that lung cancer is the most tricky of them all because it's detected generally when it's at stage 4. So it's really bad, like for the person already. And it's a shock, I mean, to the whole family, to the whole community, to have people that that you have been, like greeting every day, diagnosed with lung cancer just because they did not test their houses and figured this problem out before it's too late. So
yeah.
I really would like to stress how much it's important to have this program, because it's very frequent that we run the testing campaign in a community, but not a lot of people are, let's say, driven to participate. But once the results are there and people see that our neighbors and like the neighborhood that tested high for radon, and they start to see the danger around them, then they're interested in testing, but then they have to buy their kits. So participating in a program like that would offer you that like extra saving on the cost of the kit. Not only that, but also you have a full experienced crew to help guide you through the whole process. So you're not left alone to figure out this website and how to, register it and do all that. every person in here has done this multiple times. They're going to carry you all along the process and to make sure that the results are there, they're efficient, and they're easy for you. So they will really help help all of you guys go through the process. Also, the other thing is, if a community tests, then when the results are there and there is a need to mitigate houses, people like Steve can come up with a plan like to mitigate the whole community, offering a considerable reduction in the price and the cost. So it's going to be very good for the community and very good for the people that are going to be mitigating their houses. So generally, like doing this in the flock and like the whole group is way better. So please seize the chance. I'm constantly having calls from people asking questions about where to buy a test kit, how to figure out things. Really, guys, you have a chance, a golden chance in here to go through the whole process smoothly, easily, and even a chance to exploit those results afterwards, if you want to.
Yeah. Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, it's great. Shout out for the program. We do really love this community testing program because it makes it easier, makes tests accessible for especially smaller areas where maybe it would be harder to find a kit. And then especially, like you said, it's free, where after this program, it is, if you don't test with the free kits, the costs are about $60 or up. So it's a really great opportunity. Yeah.
Indeed.
Good. Anne-Marie, I've got a question for you about the health risks. So we do talk about lung cancer, but do you want to speak to, are there any other known risks from radon other than lung cancer?
The simple answer to that question is we don't know. So as an artifact of what happened with the miners, they were mostly men working underground. There was likely a higher proportion of smokers in those cohorts. And what was very clear was that they were dying of lung cancer. So the occupational health physicians went and looked at exposures and they determined that it was radon. And then policy was made going forward around occupational exposures. Unfortunately, it's unethical to expose people to radon gas to see what happens in their lungs. So the kinds of controlled research that we would need to answer those questions, we don't know. There are some suggestions that radon is associated with other cancers. It would sort of make sense. Radon is soluble in water and therefore soluble in blood. That could be related to leukemias or even lymphomas. But the power that's needed to do a study like that and the residential histories to understand how long and where people lived, these are really complicated things to do. So because radon is such a clear lung carcinogen, the policy and the emphasis has really been on that. But whether or not it's related to COPD or other blood cancers or even brain or gastric cancers, the answer is right now, we don't know.
Okay. And then along with that question, do you want to speak to whether people with COPD or asthma may be at higher risk if they're exposed to radon?
Again, we don't know. The people who at the moment they believe to be at elevated risk for radon are children and in utero babies that are being developed. And that's because rapidly dividing cells are more at risk from radiation in general. So in the United States, there is a call to be particularly protective around spaces where there are children to make sure that the radiation levels are lower, just because we know that children breathe faster. They have a smaller body size, so the radiation is more impactful on a small system. And that, yeah, anything we can do to reduce a radiation exposure in a child is probably a good thing. So those are really the only populations that are considered to be particularly vulnerable. But if you already have lung health issues, COPD and smoking are often linked. So if you've taken that step to stop smoking or someone else in your home has too, this is kind of the next best thing that you can do.
Yeah, thanks. Rebecca, did you want to jump in on that as well? Oh, you just need to unmute first.
Sorry about that. So just to add a little bit on Anne-Marie's explanation. So we need to see this as a scientific answer to the question. So scientists cannot 100% per se. Like there is a whole process, scientific process about answering like 100% this question, but that doesn't mean that radon is not known to be a carcinogen like factor. And that doesn't mean that radon is not known to have induced like more than 3,000 deaths from lung cancer in Canada every year. So that's an average. So,
right.
yeah.
So we know it's linked to lung cancer, and that has been proven. It has been a class A carcinogen. It's known by Health Canada and also the World Health Organization. Yeah, absolutely. But we don't know if it may be linked to leukemia or other issues. We know it's linked to lung cancer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd like
Yeah.
to add though that, you know, it's not just humans that are at risk here. So we often get calls about people's pets. And I think Pam can explain a bit more about this, but in the US, there was research done on dogs where they did expose them, because you can expose animals to things. Tobacco and radon, dogs inhaled them, and sure enough, they developed dog lung and snout cancers. So we do get calls from people who say, hey, and it's not common for a pet to die of lung cancer. So to have a cat or a dog have lung cancer in a home, like that is in some ways a bit of a flag. So I don't know, Pam, if you want to explain some of the calls that you get.
Yeah, we've had one, in fact, she's a friend of mine. Unfortunately, she's been diagnosed with lung cancer, and she told me not only that she should have tested for or for radon because she knew me, she knew I told her about it, or she knew what I did for a living, and she just didn't think to test until she had her own diagnosis. But then she said, my dog also died of lung cancer like 5 or 6 years before she was diagnosed. And she really, when she was facing her own diagnosis, she was shocked. And she was like, she wanted us to go to vets and say, look, why not use that as an indicator? Tell the homeowner to test for radon, because that really should be an indication. We have another individual in Ontario who his wife and his dog died the same couple months, and then we also have heard stories from communities in the prairies where radon levels had been quite high, that there's actually been multiple people in the same house that have died, and including the dog. So I have been getting stories. I get phone calls from people all over the country asking about radon. So we are starting to gather some of these testimonies and share them out. Yeah. All right. Steve. Anne-Marie.
Yeah, there's a question here about the detectors, about what do they have batteries? Do you need to turn them on? And is there any risk associated with the little device?
Okay, I'll answer that one. So yeah, there is no batteries, so they're a passive detector. In fact, there's no chemicals at all in them. So if you take it out, you shake it, nothing will spill out of it. It's safe. If your kids play with it or your pets happen to get it, it's not toxic or dangerous for them. We don't recommend it as a toy, obviously, but it won't harm anybody. So that's the good news. It's just pieces of plastic, and inside is a little piece of plastic. And really the only way to start it is to cut open the package and take it out, and that's it. And it starts. And then really when you ship it back to the lab, then they'll analyze it. So yeah, that's the end of it. All right, good question. There are smart detectors that are available, so we've been doing more and more research on it. But these ones are the cheaper, the passive detectors that we're handing out. Steve, I was going to ask you, one of the other questions we've gotten is about HRVs. Do you see a lot of heat recovery ventilators in the Newfoundland Labrador area? And do you have any comments about the effectiveness with radon?
Yeah, so by code since 1990, HRVs have been installed. They're pretty common here, especially on the Avalon. Of course, lots of older homes don't have them. I see differing results. Sometimes the HRV, whether it's on or off, doesn't seem to be making much difference at all. Maybe like 5%, 10%. Other times, like a client I was speaking with yesterday, his dropped significantly, but he actually had modified his HRV, so that doesn't really count. So I see a variety. What I'll say is that it might drop it a little bit. Rarely we see the HRV, at least from what the houses I've seen so far, not enough to bring it down significantly. Certainly nowhere near as effective as the fans.
Yeah.
I do find some clients have HRVs and they just don't have them turned on. So my first recommendation is just turn on the HRV and see what it does.
Yeah, really good point. And that's where a digital detector is really useful. You can put one up and watch it if you do install an HRV, or also balance it. We find they get really out of balance, and that really does accentuate the depressurization issues in a home. So properly balancing and maintaining it would be good.
No, I totally agree with that. In fact, I'm going to get certified to do the rebalancing as well as a part of our mitigation. I saw one study that was looking at older homes versus newer homes. And of course, the newer homes have the HRVs, and in some cases, newer homes even had higher levels of radon. So one of my working theories is that imbalance in the HRVs, creating a constant negative pressure in the basement, and just continuously mining the radon from underneath your home and bringing it in, making matters much worse. So HRV is good. But making sure they're balanced is critical.
Yeah, really good. We were talking also about the energy use of the fans. And so do you want to talk about, how do you explain to people how much energy does the fan use?
So before I leave, I will actually measure the wattage draw of that particular fan in that particular situation. I've had them as low as 6 watts and maybe as high as 30 or 40 watts. So we're talking about a fan that's running really slow and it burns about the same amount of electricity as a light bulb. So it's very insignificant.
Yeah, so it's not gonna add much to your energy bills, but really it will work continuously and effectively for the entire use of the home. Great.
And you mentioned the continuous monitors, and when something like this, when we do, so you use these cheap ones as a screening tool, you come back high, we recommend using one of the digital ones, and then that'll act as confirmation, plus you'll be able to see if there's any trends. And then after we mitigate, you can, on your phone, you can see what your radon levels are real time. So there's no guesswork. You know that the system we've installed is working. There's just no question about it.
Yeah, really good point. So an important part of the mitigation process is you will do testing to make sure that the mitigation system that you've installed is effective in reducing the levels. And so both in the short term and long term, those digital detectors are great.
Yeah, there's nowhere for me to hide. The data is very, very clear.
Yeah, that's great. Good. Anne-Marie, one of the things that Shelley and I were talking about is in the community, lots of people have been saying they just didn't even know about radon. And you and I often talk about this. The stats across the country really are that it is emerging. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you've been since you've been learning about radon many years ago, the fact that somebody's newly learning about radon, that's not unusual?
It really isn't. So I'm a cancer epidemiologist, and it wasn't until 2007 that this came on my radar, and I've been at my job a long time. And I was actually shocked when I learned about radon gas because it wasn't part of my curriculum in my studies. And so when I learned that this was an important contributor to lung cancer, my first thought was, well, we need to tell people. And in Canada, we were really late to the radon game. In the United States in 1986, they started residential radon testing in earnest. And while their program is kind of rolled out different than ours, I was just at a conference in the US about radon, and I met a young man from Kentucky, and he gave me incredible details about the radon system in his home and what people have been doing. And I was just really impressed by the general knowledge. So I think as a country, we've been behind, but what we've been doing with this program has been impressive. I know Health Canada since 2007 has really been trying to push the information out. But, you know, just a website isn't enough. Like, we need things like this. We need people, neighbors talking to neighbors, and really to help people both validate and better understand what this means for them and their families.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. And we call ourselves Take Action on Radon. And really that is because we want everybody to do something. So after you've tested and taken action to help you learn about radon, help teach your neighbors and take action that way. Rebeb, did you want to add to that?
Yes. So it's a great point that Anne-Marie is mentioning, and just the fact that like Health Canada has been trying to figure out the best way to promote radon awareness, we know now that the best way is the word to mouth. So if you talk, or like if you just volunteer to grab some radon kits and distribute them to your neighbors, you might be saving their lives by doing that. You're making, you know, like 80% of the job done for them. And that's the most efficient way, like to raise awareness for radon. It's really you guys. You are the heroes of the radon program and the champions.
And so to do that, there are still kits available. So there is a number that are pre-registered, which is great. And so all of you who have registered already for a kit, you can go pick up your kit, but tell your neighbors there are more kits available, so they can go in on a first come, first served basis, go in and talk with Shelley, and she'll help them connect to a kit.
Yeah, I think if people in Newfoundland had family who were part of the your fluorspar or uranium mining industry, like, you know, tell them about this, because it really is like, this is the downstream product of those people's unfortunate demise. But it's kind of it's a Canadian story in many ways. If we had longer, I would go on and on about how we were really an important country in the evolution of our understanding of radon. So yeah, I'd be proud that as Canadians, we've actually managed to move the needle a lot on what we understand about the health impacts, but now we need to make sure that everybody knows about that.
Yeah, that's right. And really, because it is in our home, the government gives us the information, but we're the ones who have to take action. And so that's really important.
Yeah. We're here, so please feel free. Again, if you have questions, again, no questions are too small or too weird. So if something occurs to you afterwards, please reach out, because we're always happy to. I could go on and talk for many hours about this. So I'm going to stop, because I think we're coming up to the end of our time. But thank you.
Yeah, we are. If there are any last minute questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But as Anne-Marie said, we're here. You've got our contact information on the envelope, the instructions. Feel free to reach out to us, and Shelley has it as well. And so, yeah, so it's great. So thank you so much, Steve. I should just quickly, is there anything else, Steve, that you think we should add before we say goodbye?
No, I think this was a pretty good overview. I put my name and contact info in the chat, so if anybody has any questions, Shelley, especially with the time zones and everything, I'm a resource for you as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, sounds great. Good. Rebeb, did anything else that you wanted to make sure we add before we say goodbye?
No, actually, I'm so happy to join you in the presentation and in the lunch. Sorry. So we're doing marvelous things in the Atlantic region and in overall. So we are really, really riding the wave, and I'm so happy to be part of every program that is launched. And yeah, so if you have any questions or want to see like have more resources about like what radon is and like what does it come from, or any general information, please feel free to contact me at any time.
That's great. Good. And this is the first launch of our Newfoundland Labrador communities. We do have more coming. So I think we've got 4 communities in total from the province, which is great. Yeah, good. Shelley, any questions that you've been hearing from people that we didn't answer yet tonight?
Nope, I think you guys did a marvelous job, and we're really excited to get this started, and hopefully our community turn out with low results of this radon, and we're happy to participate in this.
Yeah, good. That's a really good point. Even if you think you only ever hear of low results in your community, that is great. That's what we love. So this test will just give you peace of mind and confirm that you do have a low radon level in your home. So that would be great. But if you do happen to have high levels, it will also give you that peace of mind too, to make sure you keep your home safe. So Shelley, thank you so much for connecting. It was great to have you reach out to us and be able to help us bring the program to Gillams. So we really appreciate your time. We do provide things free and we provide resources, but we so rely on the local person for staff time. So we don't want to appreciate you. We really greatly appreciate you. So thanks so much, Shelley.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And thank you all. Thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you taking time out of your midweek and talking about radon, as Anne-Marie loves to. We hope that you guys now also will love to share the knowledge that you've learned. So thanks so much for joining us tonight. And yeah, reach out and we'll connect. We look forward to connecting with you over the next 3 months as we help you through this testing process. All right, take care.